Today for Devotions with Daniela, we are reading White Women Get Ready, How Healing Post-Traumatic Mistress Syndrome Leads to Anti-Racist Change. This is a book I'm working on for my own practice, and if you would like to read and chat along about it with me, you can get copies pinned here. This is about labor, and emotional labor, and unpaid labor, and we know cults are always about labor. Mechanical philosophy wastes not on white women overwhelm. Mercantilism and colonialism have something to do with why my school's curriculum included the scientific method. They had something to do with the invention of homelessness, too. During that era, Europe began to shift its cultural relationship to the human body. Now that reproductive labor had been cut apart from wage labor, now that humanity had been further dissected for profit, humans and their bodies became viewed as raw material, disposable for the advancement of the emerging nation state. Mercantilism sought to equate the human body with the machine, and among other things, manufactured mass homelessness. That more mobile, more desperate, and more dependent workforce, they were shipped to the European colonies as indentured laborers, who would soon be racialized as white. Those distant lands with abundant resources and diverse peoples, they were God's mandate to the nation state to be rationally used to fill up coffers at home. To quote Genevieve Vaughn from the essay Patriarchal Capitalism versus a Gift Economy, those free gifts such as water, seeds, species, and traditional medicines were taken away from the people whose needs were unilaterally satisfied by them. Just as European patriarchy had professed hierarchy and dominion, so too did the project of colonization extend Eurocentrism, as European men were christened to further the nation-state's reach of exploitation and control. It was also during this era that any association between the body and the sacred, which might have morally compelled the city of Atlanta to end endemic homelessness, became greatly diminished. 17th century mechanical philosophy explained the natural world in terms of the mechanics of matter in motion. Using this lens, the body could be understood as a set of separate parts to be objectively studied, separated, measured, and dominated. As Federici points out, with mechanical philosophy, one could investigate the vices and limits of imagination, the virtues of habit, the uses of fear, how certain passions can be avoided or neutralized, and how they can be more rationally utilized. In this sense, mechanical philosophy contributed to increasing the ruling class control over the natural world, control over human nature being the first, most indispensable step. At public high schools, as we read Hobbes and Descartes, I was taught rational philosophies and that the Age of Enlightenment was a triumph. Perhaps some of this philosophy was accurate. The repetitive science projects and disconnected musings of dead white men certainly neutralized my passions for studying them. But what wasn't in my school curriculum was how these remnants of mercantilism helped normalize the homelessness I felt so passionate about ending. As the prereq to capitalism, large-scale planned poverty was one of mercantilism's pillars. In the article, The Reason You Answer Work Email on the Weekend is Over 500 Years Old, Stephanie Buck writes about how mass poverty was part of mercantilism's design. Keeping people poor kept them busy, and cult leaders always want you busy and poor. And making people feel responsible for their poverty gave work ethic a holy meaning. It was at this point in history that idleness became a grave sin. Not working, even when there wasn't actual work to do, became wasting time. And wasting time was a sin that could lead to hell. To quote Buck, now not only were laborers contending with the demands of a relentless work week, they also experienced spiritual guilt and fear. Would misusing time threaten their fate in the afterlife? What the church and mercantilist economy could agree on was the destiny of the poor human soul, or more specifically, how to profit off a collective fear of damnation. And cults are always about fear. To paraphrase Buck, suffering from work, according to the British ruling class, was actually beneficial for poor people, who, if not preoccupied with back-breaking endless labor, would be tempted toward laziness and free time. These cultural assumptions persist today. We shame the poor as lazy while idolizing the leisure of the wealthiest. Check out White Women Get Ready, How Healing Post-Traumatic Mistress Syndrome Leads to Anti-Racist Change.